We have already seen the basic concepts of communication, what is communication and how it affects life. We'll now be talking about the different types of communication. Usually there are three basic types of communication through which people communicate. Oral communication is the communication that takes place through the verbal and oral means, and it implies that communication through the mouth, and it is face-to-face communication. This type of communication is the most usual form of communication through which people communicate. Then there is a written communication, which involves any type of interaction that makes use of the written word. This is more formal and is usually more reliable because it is a recorded form of communication which the business organizations follow. The third type of communication is non-verbal communication, which is usually understood as the process of communication through sending and receiving wordless messages between people. In fact, non-verbal communication can accompany all forms of communication because it is the way to express views in addition to words, written or oral. Oral communication has several advantages. It is more effective, speedy and economical because you don't involve pen or paper and you don't involve much time also. Oral communication gives immediate feedback whether you have understood or not because it is in an interactive mode. It is more transparent. But there are several disadvantages of this form of communication. There is every likelihood of distortion of message. Then there are no permanent records, so people can often retract from what they have said. It is unsuitable for lengthy communication. There are emotional barriers, the way you express, the use of paralanguage and several other things. And the spontaneous response that comes in an oral communication may not be well thought of. Written communication, on the other hand, has several advantages. It is more precise and explicit, and its biggest advantage is that it is verifiable. That is, it can be recorded and kept for years. There is less likelihood of distortion of message. Emotional barriers are largely not there, and it is suitable for lengthy communication. However, there are certain disadvantages of this form also. It is costly because it involves paper, pen and other gadgets. It may not always clear doubts because written word also has several meanings. It is time consuming and feedback is not immediate. You have to wait for getting the feedback. The non-verbal communication has several advantages. It helps people who are not very conversant in language to express their views. Thus, a person who is not good in any particular language may also communicate what he wants to say. In addition, it adds to the effect of conversation by laying emphasis on what the speaker wants to say. It is a very fast way to transfer a message. One gesture may tell what has to be done in a flash of a second. But there are several disadvantages of this form of communication. There are greater chances of misinterpretation. It cannot be verified, and there may be regional or cultural variations. So one gesture may mean one thing in one society and it may mean exactly the opposite in another society. But all said and done, non-verbal communication is usually accompanied by the oral communication, and it is always suggested that oral communication should be backed with non-verbal communication because it adds to the impact of the communication.